Hello, I'm Professor Dido Green, and I'm here to talk about our recent editorial written with Annette and Charles Zammit, Growing Up Together with Young People with Disabilities, Co-Producing the Future. This is published in Developmental Medicine Child Neurology in the February issue. We are joined by Janine Naudé, who was Charles's occupational therapist when he was a child growing up in Gibraltar. We talk about the journey navigating health, educational and social services from childhood to adulthood. Charles Zammit's voice will join us at different points in the journey in order to add his perspective.
And let's go back to when Charles was very little. What was your experience of the services and the inputs available at the time, and how did that work for you and for Charles?
After his postnatal checkup, and once it was confirmed that he has actually got Down syndrome, because there was always that idea in my head that maybe they made a mistake. We very quickly got invited to come to St. Martin's School at the time for the early intervention program. So we actually the support was really good at the beginning. Yes.
What would you say was the emphasis of his therapy? What was the main focus of the therapy? What did you feel?
I think the main focus was getting him to reach the milestones, make sure that he progressed with his feeding, his walking, his speech. He was one of the first children within the early intervention program that Gaynor taught marketing to. He was very good with marketing, and his language came on very quickly after ours. That was really the main focus, was to get him to his milestones and to tick the boxes on our voltage sheets.
And as Charles got older, how did it all develop?
Well, I think he really enjoyed being at St. Martin's. He had friends. His groups were small. The unit, I think, had about 4 or 5 maximum children in them. It was fine as long as they were not too noisy.
I want my school back.
You want your school back?
Yes.
Okay, so was there some nice things at the school that you liked?
I like all my friends there in my nursery.
Friends, okay.
I was lots of kids very small.
But he had a very good friend who was Jenny, and they used to go around the school getting up to mischief. And I think it was really enjoyable. In fact, there are times now when he's, as an adult, he takes out things that, in fact, he's now watching Power Rangers again, because he says it reminds him of his childhood. And
how involved did you feel in his kind of school, in his aims, in the objectives that were set? Was there a big involvement there?
Totally. Maybe a little bit over the top, to be honest. And we were very involved as a family, and from a very early age. In fact, we started the Faith and Light groups for families here when he was only 11 months old. And that was a great support to us as parents, because we met parents that were in the same situation as our school.
And Annette, do you think at the time, was there a plan for the road ahead?
I didn't have a plan. All I could think of was the fact that I wanted him to be where his siblings were. I wanted him to be in the same catchment area, in the same school, which took ages to achieve. He was 6 years old when he went into St. Joseph's after a big battle with the Department of Education, because the recommendations from the Stereotyping Centre in Portsmouth, where he'd gone when he was 2 years old, was that because of his language and because of his ability, he should have been in school from a very young age. And that was something that we couldn't, a hurdle that we never got over until he was 6. And then he was taken out, or it was like a partial placement outreach program, the Richard outreach program. So he went to St. Joseph's. He came to St. Martin's in the morning, and then he went to St. Joseph's in the afternoon with a couple of other children from his unit.
Yes. And with regards family, friends, and all those areas, do you think that was addressed enough? Was there enough emphasis, you feel, on facilitating him with his friends, his leisure, with all that?
There was a lot of things that we embarked on with him. We tried absolutely everything that we could think of, and because of his brothers and sisters being of a similar age, that did help. That did help a lot, because obviously his brother was like his idol, and he would sort of do everything that his brother was doing. And then obviously we were living in an estate where there were friends coming in and out of the house. We are a very big family, so he really cherishes his cousins. To the day he asks about his cousins, because they all grew up together. So I think, yes, they were all more or less the same age. So we used to go out to the countryside together on a Sunday, my parents and all my brothers and sister, and we used to have a good family setup. So I think he didn't miss anything out on family. And friends, yes. And then through Faith and Light, we had lots of friends, which to this day we still have. So yes, but then I suppose as they get older, friends go off and do different things. At certain ages, they go off and they get married and they have children, and that happens with siblings. So, sometimes it's a bit more difficult to meet up and stuff like that, but we try to do that as much as possible.
And as child got older, Annette, like when he was 16 and school had finished and he needed to move into the next stage, what happened?
That was very difficult. That was very difficult for him and for us, because we had an idea which wasn't ready. For us, the idea was, I think, a little bit advanced. And within our system, it was like, no, that's not possible. The fact that I had connections in Spain through family, friends of my parents, we were able to register him in Spain, and then he started to placement in Spain, where we knew there was more available, sort of more workshops, more life skills, more space.
What about work? Did he start work experience? Did he do any work placements?
He actually, none of that was an offer. We had to make it up, and I remember that we were given the option, and we went to this meeting at Boys Comprehensive with the, I don't know, we were going to decide whether they were going to take him on or not, and we had a lot of within that meeting, everybody was saying this can't work, and then we had the teacher, Mr. Sullivan, who said, I'll take him on. And Mr. Sullivan took him on. And Mr. Sullivan was in a special unit. So Charles started attending the special unit, which was really nice because he met up with Matthew, who he'd met at St. Joseph's. So Matthew would wait for him at the gate, and Matthew would bring him to the gate, although Matthew wasn't in the same class as him. But would keep an eye on him at playtime and stuff like that.
And so from there, moving forward to work, how did that develop?
Well, it just happened that we were doing some fundraising on our Down Syndrome Awareness Day, and McDonald's offered to do the £1 per Big Mac to contribute towards our fundraising. And when they collected, we were asked to come in and to receive the check, the donation. And we took our youngsters with us, and he happened to go up to the manager and say to him, I would like to work in McDonald's. So then we decided that he would go in the mornings to a placement, and in the afternoons he would do a couple of hours at McDonald's. And that's where he started working.
And where are you now, Annette, as a family? Where are you all as a family at the moment? Where is Charles at the moment?
Well, after COVID, it's been very difficult because Charles, I think, regressed somewhat during COVID and couldn't quite understand that, there were no more germs around, or that he could mix with people. It's taken a while for him to realize that. So it's been very difficult because the family is big. My family, my extended family is big. But during COVID, I did really protect him or overprotect him maybe, because he was deemed as being extremely vulnerable.
From Bayside to Sansu, did anybody ask you what you wanted to do, or they just take you there?
He took me there.
Yeah, it's true.
And I wanted to talk about this with you because
Yes, I was in a cage.
yeah, you were in a cage. Why did you feel like you were in a cage?
I get overwhelmed.
He gets overwhelmed.
Yes.
Overwhelmed.
Shouldn't attend. So we started losing touch with our extended family. Apart from the fact that we lost our grandparents, or his grandparents rather, and particularly the last grandparent that we lost was during COVID, and he was very upset about that because he never got a chance to see him or there was no closure really. And as a family unit, it's just the three of us at home, and I think it's really difficult for him because his siblings are now away. I think it's a little bit like, what am I still doing here? But at the same time, he's becoming quite attached, and he really doesn't want me to go very far, and is getting a little bit like, well, quite attached really to me in particular, which makes it very hard.
Charles and I have been talking about his life journey, passing from when he was born to his school and his upper school, and then his work at McDonald's, and then what was that, the dreaded COVID that stopped everything. It was really horrible, wasn't it? And then, but we had a bridge over that. We got round that, didn't we? And now, looking to think how we can manage the next bit of your road, what would you like for us to help you get there?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
You mentioned before in the editorial we wrote that how important it was to be included and to be invited by people and working with people.
And I do it in Costa.
Yeah, you did it when you worked in Costa, and you also did that in McDonald's, didn't you?
It was very hot for me there.
Yeah, McDonald's was very, very hot. So Costa was better, but the importance of being part of a team, isn't it?
Yes.
So how in particular you'd like to try, or like us to help you with?
I don't know, it's very hard for me.
It is hard, but so what can we do to help?
No
Sorry. What about like we did today, making, learning the numbers?
Yes.
So you can do the shopping, but making that fun.
Yes.
Was that good?
Yes.
We can maybe integrate the different tasks we're doing.
Yes.
So still making learning, because you like to do new things.
I do.
Yeah? And you want to be healthy.
Yes.
Yeah. So you want all of us to work together, isn't it? Is that it?
Yes.
Anything else?
I don't know.
You don't know? Well, do you want to have a think?
I think.
And when you maybe get home, you can tell your mum, or you can phone me, you can WhatsApp me, and let me know? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, well thank you, Charles. That's really great.
If you were to go back, how could we improve the way we supported Charles and the family? So how could we do things with Charles being really central into decisions and things like that, rather than doing things in Charles's best interest?
I think first and foremost, by including him in decision making, by not putting so many obstacles in the parents' way, that you have to be fighting rather than something being there available and there's a choice of what that person can do or not do. But it's just when you have to battle to achieve things, it's really exhausting, and I think it does have a massive impact on the family as well. And instead of using that time for battling for services, maybe if they're there available, then obviously whenever, I think most importantly that whatever decisions are made with him, in consultation with him, rather than us making decisions which we think are in his best interest.
To improve our services, to really feel and to really help child to gain a real sense of worth and belonging and being part of the community. What would be your recommendations for us to be able to achieve that?
I personally think that the services are quite disjointed. Right? I personally think that that if all the professionals worked together as best they could, or if possible, it would make more sense, because we could actually provide a service which is specifically for the person, rather than fit the person into a service. And what I've been getting all my life from the very beginning, since Charles was born, is that this is what there is and there's no option. And I think that's really frustrating, because from my perspective, because I've trained and I've done early years and I've worked with children with Down syndrome before even Charles was born in the UK, and I've seen how inclusive settings work. And I'm not saying that inclusion is for everyone, but it seems quite sad that something that can happen or is possible is turned down just because the policy says so, or because the system says so, or because the I forget what it's called, when you go to the education department and they have a group that hasn't even met the assessment panel. The assessment panel was meeting to discuss Charles without even knowing Charles. There were some people there, admittedly, that knew him from St. Martin's. There were some others that had never met him, and they were discussing Charles without us as parents having an input. So I think we were the first parents that were ever allowed into the assessment panel, because I made it very clear to the Department of Education that if they were discussing Charles, that we as parents should be included. And that is when we started the ball rolling for the outreach program, because I think it's really important that professionals work together and that parents can work together with the professionals and have their input as well. And I found that very frustrating all through this life, that it's like, no, this is what there is, and that's the option, and there's no other option. And what do? We live in Gibraltar, you can't move. If you're in the UK and the option isn't there, you can move to another barrack, to another council. You can't move. And the only alternative that I had when Charles was 18 was to move into Spain, where he didn't speak the language, where he understood the Spanish but didn't speak the language. So he had to learn, and he had to move. We had to cross the frontier daily. He had to get on a bus, go to his service, to this centre, come back, and we did that for literally, I think it was 12 years. And we had to cross when there were queues, and when there were no queues, and the weather was ghastly, it was stressful. And I stopped doing the crossing over, I think it was when I had one of my parents that wasn't well, and I couldn't do both things, and then I had to stop that. And then they resumed going there again when another facility opened where there was more children or youngsters his age and of his ability, and we started doing that again. But actually, it gets to the point where you can't do that forever. You know, this is his community. This is where he belongs. And he said very recently, this is where I want to be, and I think he's got the right to decide where he wants to be. And I think if professionals work together, and I think we've got a fantastic situation where we're small. There's no reason why somebody cannot work with anybody else, because we're just maybe across the road, or, and I think working together, there's a lot of possibilities within our community if we tap into them, and a lot of people within our community that are willing to do things for our youngsters. But, we put them in an institutionalized setting, and leave them there from 9 to 4, and that's it. It doesn't happen. So that's what I think is important, that we all work together.
Thank you. I think it's a really, really interesting discussion, and a lot for us to think about as professionals, that we're part of the community, and as now Charles is an adult within the community, to involve him in that way.